Hey everybody, welcome to the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party presented by AMI, brought to you by the CNIB Foundation. With the unfortunate cancellation of the 2020 Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the Canadian Blind Hockey Association has instead decided to present this blind hockey at home viewing party, and we hope everyone at home is enjoying and participating here today. I'm very pleased to be joined by Luca DeMontis, the Program Manager for Canadian Blind Hockey, and Matt Morrow, Executive Director for Canadian Blind Hockey. And I am Nico Cardarelli, the voice of blind hockey. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time to join me here remotely today.
No problem. Thanks for taking part in this, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a second best option if we can't all get together to celebrate blind hockey at the Mattamy Athletic Center in Toronto. Let's all just celebrate blind hockey from at home.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, let's get right into it, guys. And Matt, I want to start with you. And maybe for some of our newer viewers, let's touch on the sport of blind hockey and exactly what is blind hockey.
Sure, Nico. We won't go into too much depth since I imagine the majority of our viewers are the Canadian blind hockey community, who are all very, involved and aware of the sport. But for anybody that's uninitiated, that's new to the game, the sport of blind ice hockey is the exact same as traditional hockey. The biggest difference is that all the players are blind or partially sighted. So the majority of our players range from legally blind, which is 10% vision or less, to completely blind. And the largest adaptation for the sport is the puck. The puck is bigger than a traditional puck. It's 5.5 inches by about 1 3/4 inches. And it's made out of a thin steel. It's filled with ball bearings, and it makes a lot of noise. So that's how players that maybe can't see the puck or lose track of the puck when it's further away from them can follow along with the play. Players with the most vision tend to play forward, all 200 feet. If you see the sport at an international level, you'd just think it was any typical hockey game. Players with less vision often play defense, and players with less vision or no vision sometimes play defense and just stay in their own zone. So they don't participate in the attacking zone, but they do participate in the play in the defensive zone. And then by rule, all goaltenders are completely blind, or typically the lowest vision player on the team wearing a blindfold. Other than that, we've got a couple modified rules. Because the puck doesn't make much noise in the air, the goals are actually adapted nets, which are 1 foot lower. So instead of your traditional 6x4, our nets are still 6 feet wide, but they're only 3 feet high. Because the goaltenders are totally blind or wearing a blindfold, and the puck does not make noise when it's still, after the goaltender makes a save, as long as the puck remains in the blue paint of the crease, the play is blown dead. So it's not up to the goaltender to try to cover the puck. The puck is automatically frozen. For player safety, no player of either team is allowed in the goaltender's crease other than the goalie. So if an offensive player went in, it'd be an offensive crease violation. If a defensive player went in, it would be a defensive violation and potentially a penalty if the referees thought it awarded it. And really, the other big rule is the one pass rule. So the pass rule is important to make sure that the game is truly played on an equal playing field. And so once an attacking team crosses the offensive blue line, they must complete one pass before they are eligible to score. So this stops the players with the most vision, who may be the best player, best skater, from just going end to end all the time, and makes it a lot more of a team game. And what we find is it allows everybody to participate a lot more, and it makes for a very enjoyable viewing experience. So in a nutshell, that's what blind hockey is. And we are the Canadian Blind Hockey Association. If you check out CanadianBlindHockey.com, there's a list of all of our programs all across the country, from children, youth, adult low vision development, recreational, summer camps, all the way up to the Canadian National Blind Hockey Team.
Now, Matt, I want to get back to you in a brief second here to talk a little bit about the decision-making that went into this year's tournament being postponed, canceled, and this viewing party specifically. But before we get to that, Luca, maybe you can touch a little bit about Canadian Blind Hockey as a national registered charity, and with your role, maybe speak to some of the programs that are running really from coast to coast to coast.
Definitely, Nico. We pride ourselves on our programs and events, and definitely those are two of our biggest components that make us who we are today, right? So our children and youth programs are currently growing across the country. Um, Basically, this year was a very difficult year with what's been going on, also with the teachers' work to rule in Ontario. However, I like to think that we made do, and we did provide programming for youth in certain areas where we've never been before, right? This is the first time within partnership, the Mississauga Steelheads, we were able to host a Learn to Skate tri-blind hockey program in the region of Peel with the Mississauga Steelheads. The kids had an amazing day. It was like they were Steelheads for a day. They got to share the change rooms, go on a tour, just all the little components that make this program so important to this community, right? And I think the list goes on, right? From there, we moved on to Windsor and London. We were able to partner with the CNIB Ontario Foundation, and Ryan Van Preet was an incredible individual to work with throughout this, that we also partnered in Windsor with the Spitfires. So not only did we get to skate on the ice, skate with the Spits, but the whole group got to come back that night and watch the Spitfires live, win against the Guelph Storm, and it kind of really pushed them over the edge. So they had a great morning skate, and the programs just continue. It's our third year of our GTA Youth program, and that's a program that is now a staple, and it is a program in my mind that is very important to the future of blind hockey, not only in this country but around the world, right? Many kids in that program, they've got incredible attendance record for the last 3 years, right? And I think the amount of emails and text messages I've got, because due to COVID-19, we had to cancel our last 2 weeks, right? And it's sad to get those text messages of a little young one in the group crying because he can't get on the ice today, but it's proof that this program is important and it's very needed for these kids, right? And I think Matt can very attest to another program, our first time hosting, along with partnership with the Ottawa 67s and Oshag Foundation, the Ottawa Children and Youth Program, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest developments that we had in the 2019-2020 Canadian blind hockey season was our third ongoing children and youth program. So the GTA Youth program was established 3 years ago. That's our flagship program. That's where we created the model and tried to see if it was, viable. And with the success of that program, Luca then took the model to the W. Ross McDonald School for the Blind in Brantford, which is now in its second season. And one of the really neat things this year is we had a partnership with the OSEG Foundation and the Ottawa 67s. And through that partnership, we were able to start the first Ottawa blind hockey program. It was targeted to run for 12 weeks, which was the same we had done with the GTA Youth initially. We did have to cancel the last 2 weeks due to COVID-19, unfortunately. But we had 13 youth participate in that program, aged 4 to 12. And again, as Lucas said, the attendance rate was spectacular. I mean, 95% attendance. I think most of the kids missed maybe 1 week. I was there on the very first week to get them going. Ottawa's my hometown. And it was very much a learn to skate program. We were very fortunate to have a key volunteer, Shelley Kettles, who is the skating coach for the Ottawa Senators. And she came out and volunteered virtually every week when she didn't have obligations with the Ottawa Senators. And so I was there the very first week, seeing them as very much a learn to skate. No one's in full gear. And then I was able to come back for what ultimately turned out to be the last week, week 10. And oh my gosh, all the kids were in full gear. They had their Ottawa 67s blind hockey jerseys. And we were able to run a full practice followed by coaches versus players scrimmage at the end. So just seeing the improvement of those kids from week 1 to week 10, really wish we could have got the last 2 weeks in. And then this weekend, we could have welcomed them to their first Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. But, they had the experience of a lifetime this season. I think everybody wants to come back next year. And that program will be continuing. And hopefully we can get them at a tournament sometime sooner than later.
Well, and at the very least, we can give them a virtual welcome here to the viewing party, and a reminder to everyone tuning in at home that you can be a part of the viewing party through Twitter by using the hashtag #BlindHockeyAtHome. Matt, one of the questions I want to ask you relates to the 2020 Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. And as we've already alluded to, it has been canceled because of the COVID-19 outbreak. What kind of planning went into that decision? How hard was it to come to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it was a devastating decision to have to make, but it was ultimately the right decision. I think at the time that we made it and announced it, it shocked people and took people by surprise because we were a little bit ahead of the curve. So, we pride ourselves on always being up to date with the sporting landscape. 1 week before we made the cancellation was when they announced the cancellation of Women's Worlds. And to me, very much that was a red flag. As soon as I saw that the IIHF and Hockey Canada had got together to cancel an event as important as the Women's World Championships, that's when I really thought this thing is really going to affect daily life, and I don't know about the potential for our tournament. And the week leading up to it, Luke and I actually started putting together a plan on how we could safely host the event. So between kind of the Saturday announcement when Women's Worlds was canceled and the Thursday announcement when we canceled our event, which was only 5 days later, we had put together kind of a guide. Okay, so no shared water bottles, no shared jerseys. We're going to do laundry extra. We're going to start putting all these policies in place. And by Thursday, it became very apparent in consultation with the staff and the board of directors that we felt the right thing to do was to cancel. And sure enough, within a day, Hockey Canada had announced the cancellation of basically all hockey programs in the country, and here we are the week of where all the facilities are closed. You wouldn't be allowed to host the event. So there was a lot of stress and due diligence that went into a decision that ultimately would have been made for us anyways. But after we work on this event year round, so this is the pinnacle of the blind hockey season, right? I mean, everything we do for the whole year leads up to the national tournament. And I know it's not just us at Canadian Blind Hockey, it's the teams. The teams put on pub night fundraisers. They sell tickets. They do everything they can to organize their money so that they can raise it to get plane tickets to get to Toronto and come participate in such a positive event, right? It's a great way to end the year always. So, we had to take everybody's feelings into consideration with that. But I think the way things turned out, obviously it was the right call. And now we're in a position where, because things have been canceled and partners have been great, that you never know. There is a possibility that it does get rescheduled in 2020. But if not, I'm sure it'll be back by 2021. And that'll be the 8th iteration of the Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. So either way, at some point, we're all going to get back on the ice together. We don't know when. I don't think anybody knows when, but we're just happy to have you all along at our viewing party right now this weekend.
Well, and let's touch a little bit on the viewing party. I think this is such a great idea that really, Matt, you and Lucas spearheaded this. It all kind of came together pretty quickly, but you guys deserve a ton of credit for this ingenious idea to still bring the community together. Maybe you guys both can touch a little bit on maybe who had the idea first and just how it all kind of came together in such a short time period.
I'd say the idea is clearly out of teamwork. Luca and I are a staff that, not only are we a staff, but we're friends. I've been working here a long time, and Luca's been a key volunteer for a long time. So over the last year and a half with him as a staff member, we're always discussing things. Luca had come up with a list of games and, mentioned that we got to make sure we're continuously getting content out there. I mean, 2019-2020 was such a good season for blind hockey. The sport grew like crazy across Canada. The American programs really grew, and internationally it started growing. So we were really looking forward to having an amazing event. For anybody who's unaware, the big development that was supposed to happen at the National Blind Hockey Tournament this year was AMI TV was going to broadcast the final live. So the gold medal final of the Open Division was going to be broadcast on AMI TV, AMI Audio, and AMI Tele. So that was going to be a historic moment. It would have been fantastic resource for anybody promoting the sport. And I'm sure it's going to happen in the near future. It's just been postponed. But as Luke and I discussed it, we thought, our partners as well. We have such fantastic partners who support Canadian Blind Hockey. We are a registered charity. And without the funding of these partners, we're not able to put on our programs and events. So we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to really say thank you and get the community together and say thank you. So, I mean, everybody who's a player knows, but just to list them off real quick, our presenting partners, AMI, Accessible Media Inc., they've been around since day one as the presenting partner of the organization. CNIB Foundation, our national program partner. Between these two bedrock partners, that's how this association's been built. And then our other national partners, we've got the Daniel Family Foundation that's in their second year as a national partner. We've got Electra Health, and we've got Manion. So those partners there, just, they're the reason that we're able to run these programs and events. And additionally, some of our founding partners for the Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament had already committed to supporting us again this year. So, Ryerson University, our event hosts, the Education and Workers Union for the Ontario Teachers. So these organizations have been there since day one and have helped grow this sport. And we just wanted this opportunity to get everybody together and say thank you, and then to enjoy watching some blind hockey together.
Definitely. Nico, I think one thing I could touch on is speaking to the community a lot lately. We've had a lot of time on our hands, right? And my phone rings, and it's friends is who's calling me, right? Friends who we've kind of relationships we've developed because of this community. So if there was one thing I thought that really pushed the viewing party was everybody looks forward to this weekend, right? Everybody in the community looks forward to being together. So why not be together and still a way where we can be together, right? I know there's not much sports on TV right now, and you can only watch so many reruns and highlights of previous games that why not watch a game that we hold close to our heart that's also the game that brought us all together?
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Luca. And we are celebrating blind hockey at home here this weekend as you're tuned in to the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party presented by AMI, brought to you by the CNIB Foundation. All right, so fans, we're getting set for today's doubleheader feature, as our first game will feature the children's division, and then we go right into the low vision and development game. And actually, you'll notice that all three of us were involved on that children's broadcast. As well, I did the play-by-play. I had Luca as my color commentator, and Matt, you were the referee of that game. So often we have to wear more than one hat, but it should be fun to look back on that children and youth game.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. I watched it today, and the tallest guy in our association officiating the game with the smallest players is quite the thing. The kids always, the ones that are partially sighted, always know where the referee is. Luca, you were saying.
I was just about to say, I think that the children division was probably a division that I had the most fun just enjoying watching blind hockey, right? The higher the divisions get, all the way to the select division, there's a lot of competitive players, right? And it's a competitive sport. But when you watch little Mason with the puck, or you watch Cohen with the puck on his stick, and you just see a smile on their face, that's what this sport's about. Like, these kids truly are the future of the game. The future is in great hands. But leading to the children's game, we did have to modify it, right? We couldn't play on a traditional size ice, right? So as you could tell in the game coming up, we did bring the nets to the blue lines, right? Also with that, we have the children playing in their proper age category with other children who are the same age as them, who are the same size and skill as them, right? And this is very important to make the sport parallel across the board, right? It's very important for us because not only do we want these kids to all have fun, but we want them to have fun safely and enjoy themselves, so they keep coming back year after year. As I mentioned, you're going to fall in love in this game with certain players when Mason has that puck on his stick. And Nico, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that not one of the top highlights of the 2019 tournament?
It was the top highlight, that goal by Mason. It was pretty special, that moment. That
cost me a chocolate bar with the kid, but it's all right. He deserved it. And
Well, and just to clarify further on Luca's point, so in the children's game, in addition to the smaller rink, there is the no one pass rule. The pass rule has been eliminated, and then also to ensure the appropriate size and skill, we use buzzer hockey. So there's about 20 kids participating. So the smallest 5 versus the smallest 5, and then the slightly larger 5 versus the slightly larger 5, and then that way everybody's playing with and against age and size and skill appropriate competition. So we're always looking out, in adapted sports, it's a little different than say able-bodied sports, right? In a traditional hockey, you might have a 2-year age gap. But as we'll see, and this is more tomorrow in the youth game, because the numbers are lower in sports for athletes with a disability, we often have very large differences in age. So in the youth division, there's actually, I believe, a 9-year-old is the youngest and a 22-year-old is the oldest. So, it just shows with adapted sports, you have to be able to adapt, and that's something we pride ourselves on at Canadian Blind Hockey.
Before we get into some of the youth division and adult programs that have been going on over this past year, Luca, I just want to ask you quickly, because you've spent so much time with the children between the GTA youth program, of course, all the different outreach programs that you talked about. Do you have a particularly favorite moment on the ice from this season with the youngsters?
Wow, that's definitely a tough question. I think personally, my favorite would just be getting on the ice with the kids, right? That's what it's all about, just providing them the opportunity to play this game that we all love, right? And I think seeing them enjoy themselves is the icing on the cake, right? Yeah, there's a lot of funny memories that we've had with these kids, right? We've had one of our kids from our GTA youth program approach Mitch Marner in the summer during the off season, telling him, I think you should re-sign in Toronto because we need you here, right? And then we've had kids most recently in Windsor challenge Spitfire players that their shots harder than them, right? So it's the fact that just these kids are just providing a positive outlook for anybody that is out there with any type of visual disability, right? They're providing a healthy, active lifestyle. And we're just happy to be along with them throughout this, right? We've got great volunteers in all those programs where all these youth look up to, right? From Coach Paul Cairns on a Sunday, just devoting time to these kids to instill the little skills. But if I had to choose one off the top of my head, I think it's just getting the kids on the ice, their first strides, watching them fall, getting back up, and just putting on their first ever hockey jersey with our logo on it is so symbolic.
Yeah, it's definitely a special moment the first time a youngster takes that first stride on the ice, and it's pretty special that you get to witness that week in and week out. So there's clearly a lot of fantastic developments going on in blind hockey at the youth level. And Matt, I want to ask you in terms of the low vision development division and the adult level. But before I ask you about that, let's get to a comment that comes from, well, one of our blind hockey players, a former national tournament MVP at that. This one comes from Graham Foxcroft, and he says he just wants to say hello to the blind hockey community, that he's missing everybody and can't wait to get together for the greatest weekend ever, of course, referring to the National Blind Hockey Tournament. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's challenging times right now, but everyone is in our thoughts and prayers, and we can't wait to get together again. And that's basically what we're doing here this weekend with this viewing party, is bringing blind hockey players from all around the country together. And again, you can participate using the hashtag blind hockey at home, just like Graham did by posting on our Facebook event page. So Matt, we alluded to the adult divisions, and one of the games we're showing here today is the low vision and development game. Can you talk a little bit about some of the adult programs that are happening around the country?
Sure. In addition to the adult programs that have existed in the past, we were able to welcome a new one this year, and that's the Central Alberta Bullseye. So, huge stick tap to Dustin Butterfield of Red Deer, Alberta. He took it upon himself to start a new team. He felt that both, he's halfway between Calgary and Edmonton, so he didn't really feel like a sea and ice dog, and he didn't really feel like a Seahawk, so he had to start his own program. And I know AMI's done a documentary on that. It'll be coming out at some point, which is just great to get the word out. So Alberta now leads the country with 3 blind hockey teams. So yeah, we've got programs across the country. I know Luca's been working with Simon Richard from the Canadian national team, and they did the very first try-it session for blind hockey in New Brunswick this year. So we have now done blind hockey in every single province of this country except for PEI. So PEI, we've got to cross you off the list sooner than later. I mean, we've even done the Yukon territories. So blind hockey's gone coast to coast. And back to Simon, he's in the middle of starting the Moncton Sea Cats blind hockey team. So I believe that brings the total number of programs that are ongoing in the country to 11 at all ages, right across the country. It's, over the last 10 years, it's just great to see how much this sport has grown.
Yeah, 11 and counting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, and with the passionate people involved, it's no surprise that these programs continue to grow and new programs are starting all around the country. And as you guys alluded to, it's a big stick tap to all the dedicated volunteers making things happen. All right, so one of the big reasons we are all gathered here this weekend is to replay some of the best games from last year's national tournament. So let's tee up the 2 games that we're going to be highlighting here today. Today's doubleheader includes 2 games from the 2019 Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. We're going to feature the children's game where, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the youngest player in that game was just 3 years old.
Yeah, it was very important to Luke and I that when we were curating the list for our viewing party, we wanted to show all levels of blind hockey. So throughout the weekend, you're going to get to experience the children's division, the youth division, the low vision and development division, the open division, and of course our select series, which had Canada East, Canada West, and Team USA. And I asked Luca to put together what made sense in terms of a viewing list for time. And when he put the 2 programs together for this evening, I laughed because we've got the children's division and we've got the low vision and development. And the youngest participant in children is 3. And our most seasoned blind hockey player in the low vision is 83. So if you want an example of how Canadian blind hockey truly is a sport for life, in the back-to-back games you're about to watch, our youngest participant's 3, and our eldest is a full 80 years older than he is.
It's all for the love of the game at that point.
That's pretty awesome. And obviously we touched on the modified rules a bit, but let's just refresh viewers as we're about to go directly into those games. What are some of the modified rules that we'll see in the children's division and again in the low vision and development division?
Sure. I mean, real quick in a condensed version. So we explained the rules of blind hockey. Those actually apply to the open and select. For these 2 divisions, the children, we're playing on a smaller ice surface, no pass rule are the 2 main differences, and we're using buzzer line changes. So you can only change when the buzzer goes. For low vision and development, we're playing the game 4-on-4. So we're using players that have either no vision at all, very low vision, or they may be just a newer skater. And so they're playing 4-on-4 for more space. You will notice there is an increase in collisions out there just because we've got such passionate players chasing the puck with very limited or no vision. There is no 1 pass rule in the low vision development, but instead, every time an attacking team crosses the blue line, the referee blows the pass whistle to allow everybody on the ice to know that they're in the zone and a scoring chance may ensue. So several of the players are completely blind out there. You'd never know it watching them. It's our newest division in a lot of ways. It's only been around for the last 3 nationals rather, sorry. And we're constantly tweaking it. That's our division where we really want to make the sport accessible to anybody and everybody. Someday if we had enough totally blind players, we would love a division that was only totally blind players, but we're not there yet. We see the numbers grow each year, and at some point we may get there. So, I think moving to 4-on-4 last year was a really big development. And Nico, your play-by-play throughout the game, you explain it very well too. So our viewers will know what's going on. It's both games you're about to watch are pretty exciting. They're both close scoring games with lots of excitement at both ends of the rink.
Well, with that, we want to encourage everyone to join us for the following 2 games back-to-back as we first get set for the Marlies versus Roadrunners in the Children's Division, and then the Toros versus the Arenas in the Low Vision and Development Division. Folks, this has been the pregame show for day number 1 of the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party presented by AMI and brought to you by the CNIB Foundation. Please enjoy today's games and join us at 3 p.m. tomorrow for day number 2. Remember, stay at home and enjoy #BlindHockeyAtHome.